project already created, my project.
Oh, you can show us how.
So I'm just going to show you how it works in this project, step through everything without having to write out all
And
code.
then you'll upload it.
Yeah. Okay, so we have this guy. Right now, the touch, when you touch, is when this object shows up that shows where you're going to be teleporting to. Okay, and then the press teleports you there. And you can see it doesn't show up over here. It's only when we're colliding with this object right here, the plane. Okay, and that works like this. There's a game object, a marker, which is hidden right here for now. You can see it's just a sphere that I flattened and colored red. Okay, that marker is going to be, we're going to find anything with a game object named marker. It's kind of a cheap way to do it, but it means that I don't have to manually configure. I can just name it marker and bring it with. And then I set the marker to active to false so that you don't see it, except when our update method, we cast an array, and this is highlighting buttons here. We cast array, and if the device pad is touched, then we create array, and then if the device touchpad is touched, we cast that array for that using that floor mask, right? And if this physics raycast returns true, which means it hit something, which is in the floor layer, then we set that marker to true, to active, and then we just set its position to the hit point. So it's basically the raycast is hitting some point, and if it hits the floor that we've defined as floor, then we can get that position where it hit and just set our marker to that position, and that's where we're going to be teleported to. Otherwise, we're going to set that marker to false, and if the device touchpad is not touched, we'll set the marker to false, or to inactive. That just so it doesn't show up in the scene when we're not touching the touchpad. If we didn't have these there, then when you stop touching the touchpad, the marker would say where you were last pointed when you were touching, which is not really clear. Yeah, so
null, or no, a destroy. Like it just
kind of like a destroy. So if I had those left in there, then at first I set it to be inactive, but now when I touch and then I let it go, it just stays where I last was touching, right? Which is not, it's cool. That is a feature you can do for placing something, but it's not what I want for designating my target.
that would be powerful for placing something.
Yeah, you could, for example, press a button on an object, and that would attach it to the ray, and then you press the button again, and it leaves it there, or something like that.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So we'll bring those back in.
You created a layer that acts as essentially a sensor for the position.
A layer is like it's a way to filter, so we can.
In this case,
Yeah.
okay.
So only when floor.
So the plane, which defines our floor here, has the layer floor assigned to it. If we didn't have that layer, then this physics raycast would always be false, because it would never hit anything in the layer floor, because nothing else is defining floor.
Is there not actually an object that's a floor?
There is an object that's the floor. This plane is the floor.
Okay, can that not essentially be the object that you're getting?
We could, if we did like by name, we could say, yeah, we could remove this mask, for example, and we could say, if hit.collider.name equals plane,
Yeah, I guess that's what we do.
then we could,
Check for collisions with an actual object, or you have to skin it with something. It sounds like you can just hit the actual object.
well, we're not even hitting the actual object. We're hitting the object's collider. this mesh collider.
Right.
If we move that collider, we similarly wouldn't collide. It's a pull on both, I think.
But you have to pull on the handle before you pull on the door. Or the other way around. There you go.
Oh, that's so complicated. See,
Okay, so yeah, the collider. Yeah. So
Alright, so it's hitting the collider. That's what this physics raycast is. It's only looking for colliders, not objects.
okay.
So the purpose of the layer was to be selective where you have those.
Purpose of the layer is to be selective just so that, because if I didn't have this, then we'd see that no matter what I pointed at, when touching, whoops, did I remove that? Set active, touchpad touch. Whoops. Oh, I see what's happening. It's right now it's spawning, so it spawns in the object, right? And then that object itself has a collider.
Right.
So the ray intersects with the collider on the object itself, and so that it moves, it changes the position to that outside edge, right? So then it just moves up until you can't see it anymore, and it moves back. And so, oh, I think I disabled the collider on that plant. Yeah, that's why that wasn't hitting.
Oh, wow.
Right, so
It's moving closer.
it's moving closer to it because every frame, every time that event is, or every update loop, it casts the ray out again, and it's hitting the target object itself. And so then that target object is moved to the hit position, which is on the edge of the target object. So it's always moving up at half its width, right? You could fix that by this marker disabling the sphere collider. And now it works. But you can see, because I don't have that filter, it'll position itself on anything that has a collider.
So the filter is pretty powerful to make sure whatever you're creating interacts with just what you intended.
Right. And you can use layers for that, or you could use, for example, our button click here. We wouldn't technically need to be in the layer UI, because we're only going to respond if it has a button script. And probably the only thing that's going to have a button script is something in the UI. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. This is just a belt and suspenders, as my father would say.
Yeah.
It's a double protection, a belt and suspenders to keep your pants up. So, so that's when the pad is touched, we always cast a ray and move around that marker object. And then when the pad is clicked, or when it's depressed, then we cast another ray against the floor, and then we're going to transform our position to be above that hit position. So this is the part that moves you around, is that the scene render top
Oh, right.
is moving us around.
So I read a thing about how you can assign layers to different objects and then configure whether those layers interact or
Yeah,
intersect.
that's
Does
in the.
that fit into this at all, or would that be a way to handle some of this?
It's another use of layers in that you can say, that's in the project settings physics. You get
Right,
this
yeah.
this matrix right here.
Yeah.
You can say that, for example, you could create an object. You could create spheres that had a sphere layer and cubes that had a cube layer. Okay, and then you could say I don't want the cube layer to interact with the floor layer. So anytime you dropped a cube object, it would go straight through the floor. But anytime you dropped a sphere object, it would hit the floor. So those two wouldn't interact with each other. That's the matrix going on here.
Thought of everything.
Yep.
Thanks for showing us that.
It's amazing.
Sure.
The complexity of use cases that we anticipated.
Yeah. The one last little thing is in this update loop. I'm setting the, this is how we get the highlight for the buttons. So when you saw that when I moused over them, oops. I didn't set it up for this button, but these ones, when I mouse over them, they highlight.
Oh, nice.
And that's this little bit of code in the update method.
And we didn't go over that in class, but that's in the shared project, so it could,
Right. Well, it's not in the shared project yet.
will be, okay.
Yeah. That's through the event system, and it's a selection process. So the first thing I do is set selected game object to null. That'll clear anything that's currently selected. And then I do a raycast against the UI layer. And if it's a button, then I'm going to select it. It's the same thing as the press kind of thing, except I'm doing select, which when you select a button, it triggers the highlight functionality, which is...
What is event system again? It's that default thing that comes out when you have
Yeah, the event system is all about... It's all about which object is selected in the UI and which, like how the UI is being interacted with and everything like that.
Okay.
And if you accidentally deleted it, or maybe it didn't spawn in somehow, is there, you can add it back in from the UI?
Yeah, there's an event system right here.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. I might have done that.
Yeah, I sure don't see it in my hierarchy.
I might have been like, what's that?
Right,
I don't
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Just delete it. That's not a good practice.
No.
All right, so the highlight is controlled here.
I did that on mine, but it would turn whatever the color was, and it would just stay that color after I clicked the button.
Interesting. That could be because of this. It's not being unselected, essentially.
Probably, yeah.
I'm not sure why that would be. I'd have to look at it.
I did so many things in the homework that were hard-coded and so bad. So this was really great today to learn the efficient way of doing things, and simple things like how you would move the camera in the scene before you pressed play. That was nice to see that
Right.
because I struggled a lot with, like, I turned play mode on, I'm like, where's my camera? Okay, I'll just like move it manually with the
Right.
X and Y. It'd take 15 minutes and it's not good, so
Yeah.
that was helpful.
Set it up before.
When you have prefab buttons, can you still make some changes to the local instance? So like if you wanted to change a color, like cherries would be pink and pears
Yeah,
would be green.
the base color, the
Right.
starting color, you do that in the script.
Oh, okay.
And that, what was that?
Declaring the public, where you could get at it.
No, here, when we're creating this new button,
Right.
so here we're getting the button component. So here, button dot, I don't know what they're called, something with colors. Let's see, there's canvas button. So on the button script, there's normal color, highlight color, press colors. So if this button has a, no, there's some, it's somewhere in here, but you'd set it from here. Maybe it's on the image.
I have to head out, but thank you.
Okay,
And
yep.
see you guys in the lab.
But you could change it so that like one instance has one color and another instance has another color. The one is
You
red
could,
and
you could,
green.
you could use a switch. You could switch based on the name that you're putting in, and change the color that way.
Cool.
Or you can do it and change
Right.
it that way. Or you can get fancy and instead of you could have another list here that was like a list of colors.
Okay. Right.
Yep. And then for each item on the list, you'd select the corresponding color.
Right.
You couldn't use a for each in that situation that's one of the situations where you'd have to use a for int I equals 0, I is less than items count I plus plus. And the reason for that is because you'd want to access not only the items I, but you want to access the corresponding item colors, or item color I. So you want to use this, that's where you want access to that index, is so you can index it into both at the same time. Whereas you don't get that index in a for each loop. There's no way to get that int I in this for each loop.
Because you're dealing with strings.
No, because you're dealing with the for each loop instead of a for loop. Yeah. So if you're modifying two lists, you do that, or you could create a new struct that is a public game object and a color. Sorry, let me create this as a class. I'm going to create inside of this guy. Give it a name. Right, so then you have a list of these object color pairs. Reset this guy, perhaps. Oh, it's. I'm gonna.
Can't convert to string thing. That was just about to make my eyes bleed.
Okay. So this. Maybe if we make it a struct, it'll automatically do it. We'll see. See if the inspector can do that. No. Well, put a property on it. You probably won't end up doing this, but.
No, I clearly won't, but I'm still curious.
So we want to make it serializable. This just means that it can be serialized by the Unity editor.
Okay.
And that's because we want it to show up as a list here. So now, for each one of these, you can create the apple and then set its color of the button. And then when you're iterating through this list here, you're going to say item dot my object to spawn the object, and then for your object,
color.
and then item dot my color to set the color of the button.
Right.
Okay.
Fascinating.
Well, now you have it recorded, so you can.
Exactly.
You can do it.
That's part of why I'm asking these questions.
And then, of course, you change this to that. You'd say you want this to be item dot, or sorry, item. We'll change this. Since it's no longer just a name, my item or my object dot name is going to be the text. The list item button, or sorry, we're not ready for that yet. This guy is going to be item dot my color, and this is going to be item dot my object.
But not my object and my color.
Nope, because this is the event.
Right.
And we're going to update it now to be a game object. So we don't need to do this anymore. And just instantiate and copy the game object there. So now, we'll also just do this down to 2 here. We'll do the banana, and we'll make that one yellowish. Sorry, we're going to set the alpha as well, so that actually shows up. So now, if that worked, it should show 2 buttons, 1 red, 1 yellow, apple and banana.
Wow.
All right,
That's dope.
and it spawns our objects appropriately as well. The power of programming. Hmm?
That's accurate. Yes. Wow.
And that was, I mean, you came up with an idea, and it took just a couple minutes to write it up.
Because you know.
Well, but you will eventually.
Framework so thoroughly. But it's, yeah, obviously it's you can do.
Yeah, I mean, the hard parts are this serializable. That would be hard to remember, to know about. If you didn't have that, then the Unity editor looks at that object and it's like, I don't know how to display that object.
Right.
But we say it's okay. This is defined as serializable, and also everything inside of it would also have to be serializable. Luckily, these already are.
Right.
See if we can navigate to here. Object.
Why did, in this case, it not throw up an error when you put in a class that was not the same name as the file name? Because you were already within a larger class?
Yeah, because this class is actually contained within this
Okay.
class.
Cool.
So if I wanted to create this class somewhere else, it would have to be with item selector dot object color pair. Instead of just object color. In this case, we can access it here because we're inside the class.
Right, right.
Or you would say using item selector or whatever to.
Okay.
Well, technically you have to make a namespace and stuff like that, but yeah, it's a subclass within this guy.
So a really, really basic question just occurred to me.
Uh-huh.
Apparently I'm confused between what a class is, because I've been thinking about methods so much.
Okay. What's the question?
So, well,
What's a class?
class?
The class is the blueprint for an object.
Right.
So the object can have methods and properties and fields.
Right.
And the class is something that says when you use this new keyword, it creates a new instance of that object with those fields, and it spawns this thing in memory that can hold. It sets aside this chunk of memory that can hold all of these values, right? And the functionality is not really duplicated. The methods and stuff are still going to be referenced from the class, but they're going to use that instance of the object, the data from that instance of the object to run. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I mean,
Awesome.
that's a cool feature we added there. A lot of different colored buttons.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Oh, we removed them.
Inspirational to see it.
Yeah,
Use that.
it is.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to knowing how to code and what kind of things to do in there,
Right.
it's your imagination's the limit type thing.